Hi everyone, welcome to my studio. My name is Laura and thank you for joining me for another episode of my knitting podcast. Today I have quite a few things to show you that I've been working on the last few weeks. It's been a productive few weeks, so I'm excited to show you what I've managed to accomplish. I have just made myself a fresh coffee. It's almost noon, but I feel like I could use an extra one today. So, if you would like to join me in having a nice, lovely beverage of your choice and working on one of your projects that is exciting you right now, that would be great. I'm looking forward to just catching up and showing you a few things. So the first thing I want to go through is just quite a few hats that I made. If you saw my last episode where I was comparing different knitting needles and trying out some different yarns and also some different free knitting patterns. So the first pattern that I knit quite a few of is called the My Baker's Hat. You saw this if you watched the last episode. This is knit out of the Calburn Woolens Germantown worsted, Knit Picks High Desert Tweed. And then I also knit two more as well out of Stash Yarn. This is Knit Picks Wool of the Andes Tweed, which I think I made a sweater of, and this is leftovers from that. This might be Lost Lake Heather. I'm not sure on the colorway on that one, but it's like a nice greeny blue with lots of tweed in it. And then this was dyed by my friend Rowie, this yarn, years and years ago. You can see it's a single ply. This was really fun to knit. I haven't knit with a smooshy merino single ply in a long time. So my friend Rowie used to dye yarn. Her company was called Pirates Yarn, but she does not dye yarn anymore. So fortunately you can't get this. But this is the fourth one I think I knit of the My Baker's Hat. It's a great pattern, and I think it'll be, it'll fit most people. Maybe not like a large head. It does fit my husband, but he said it was like maybe a little tight. But it could stretch out over time too. The other one that I made that you saw last week was this one. This is the June hat. I really liked how this turned out. I'd like to make another one of these because it was really fast, and it's just nice to make something simple that has just like a little bit of kind of fine detail on it. So how am I trying to explain this? It's not that this is plain or boring or anything. It's just this has a little bit more going on, and it's not that much work more than doing this. I think that's what I'm trying to say. And then the last hat I knit is a monster. So it's so large. It turned out huge. So this is another Knit Picks yarn I had in my stash. I think it was called Full Circle or something like that. It was like a recycled yarn. So I'm not sure if it's the yarn or the needles or the pattern or what. I ended up knitting the adult large size of this pattern. This is the Barley pattern by Tin Can Knit. So it's the Barley Hat. So they have, I think, 6 or 7 sizes for this hat. So I just thought, oh, I'll make the biggest adult one and it'll be good for like a larger guy's head maybe or something. And then this just turned out, it's so big. So it would work if you had like a lot of hair, but I don't know what to do with this. I'll probably just end up donating this, and hopefully someone with a lot of hair or who really like big slouchy hats can use it, because this one turned out just way too big. So it's a really nice pattern, but definitely if you're going to knit that, like if you think you need that largest size, I would check your gauge and just make sure you're not going to knit a monster, because this one turned out really big. Maybe if I went down a needle size that would have helped. I'm not sure. It could be the yarn though, because I do remember the sweater that I knit for John out of this yarn is long gone. Like he did wear it quite a bit, but it was like it got bigger as he wore it. Like like the more that he wore it, the more oversized it got, and it started out kind of big. I think this was in early days, of my knitting. This is probably like at least 10 years ago. So something went wrong there as well. So maybe it was the yarn the whole time, because this hat also just seemed to get bigger and bigger as I continued to knit it. So yeah, that was fun. I got that out of my system. I think I'm done knitting hats for a while. You know what my biggest pet peeve with hats is? I really don't like having to switch to double points. So I guess I could use double points the whole time and then I wouldn't have to switch needles, but I don't really like using double points at all, which I think is the whole point. I used to use them and now I only use them like kind of if I have to. So the thing that I find annoying is when I'm knitting on my nice little 16-inch circulars that I like to knit hats on, once I get up to like the crown decreases, I have to switch over to double point needles. So I have to go digging for the double points and it doesn't seem like a big deal, but maybe I just need to make sure I have everything with me before I start the entire hat. But that's not really my style. I kind of just grab what I need and go. So yeah, it's funny. I really wanted to knit a bunch of hats, was thinking, why haven't I knit any hats lately? They're so easy and they're great gifts. And I realized I think that's one of the things. Like I like how fast they are, but I don't like having to switch needles. That's such a like lazy, silly complaint to have, but it's true. So I brought my Halibut sweater over. Yeah, maybe I'll just pull it out quickly. This hasn't changed too much. I've maybe knit about 10 more rounds on it since I saw you last, so it probably won't look that much different to you, but it's right here. So let's pull it out. It's getting there. You can see a little bit of a fin forming now. I don't think that was there last time, so that's the Halibut sweater. I'm knitting it out of Holskarn Super Soft held double. Halibut Sweater is a pattern by Boylan Knitworks. So I also have several finished socks to show you, which is very exciting. There's birds flying around outside, distracting me. So these are my next finished object I have to show you. These are the socks that I was working on last time I recorded, and they are now finished. So this is the Knit Picks Stroll Tweed in the Wellington Heather colorway. It's just a really nice dark charcoal with the bright tweed neps in there. I did just a simple folded hem where I folded it back on itself and grafted it together, and then a turned heel and gusset and my standard toe. Yeah, so I'm really happy with how these turned out. These ones are going to look a little silly on the blockers because they're so long, but I'm going to throw them on anyways. So this is my next finished object. It looks a little silly on these blockers because they're too short, but these turned out so great. They look really good on camera. So these are another pair of kind of plain vanilla socks. I did these toe up. These are difficult to hold and also keep my face clear so that you can see what I'm saying. They're just taking up like the whole frame. This is amazing. So these are vanilla socks that I knit from the toe up. I think I've shown these on like previous podcasts from like last year, but I put them away for a while and then pulled them back out and finished them up. They are pretty epic. This yarn is Shirley Bryan yarn, and this is one of the Shirley Bryan yarn deconstructed fades. This is the Grocery Girl edition, exclusively for the Grocery Girls like winter lifestyle box that they put out. And so I finally finished these. I wanted to use as much of the yarn as possible, so I think I ended up with maybe 5 grams left out of the 2 balls. So it comes in 2 hanks, and then you roll them up and you get identical socks. These are kind of hard to hold up and talk at the same time. So what you end up with is this really beautiful fade. I really like doing this with like self-striping or any kind of like some sort of special yarn. I like to use it all up. So I'll do this where I basically cast on the toes, and then the fish lips kiss heel you can use in either direction. So I use that. And then what I do when I'm making knee-high socks like this is I will knit for a little while, just straight knitting. It looks like I maybe did, say, like 35 rounds or so of just straight knitting on these sock legs until about here. And then what I do is I just set up a line on the very back middle of the sock, and I increase 2 stitches every like 10 rounds or so. So what this does is, for me, like I need extra space in my socks if I'm going to make them tall for them to be able to fit over my calves. And then you get like a really nice roomy cuff out of it as well. So that's what I did with this. I did 2 stitches increased on the very back center here every 10 rounds. And I think I maybe did that like 10 times total. I do have these instructions on Ravelry if you want to get the proper instructions, but you can see where I'm getting at. I'm just trying to give you a basic recipe. So we're just increasing every 10 rounds or so as we go up to make some room for the calf. And then when I got here, I made sure I had a multiple of 3 stitches, and I did a 1x2 ribbing. So knit 1, purl 2. And then the only other thing you have to make sure to do with socks going toe up rather than top down is to make sure that your bind off is really stretchy. So I use Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off. I use this for like garments as well. Some people don't like the way it looks when it's not stretched out, like kind of gives a little bit of a picot edge, but it doesn't bother me at all. And I just love how much stretch. There's just no resistance here. So if you would like to knit yourself a very tall pair of socks, then now you have all the chaotic instructions you need. Yeah, this fade is so cool. I didn't want to leave any of it sitting in the ball unused. These ones didn't even make it on Ravelry, so I'm not sure when I started them. But I do remember mentioning them at least on one video. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll have to go back and try and get a timeline on these. But for now, they're done, and that's really all that matters. So these are my colors right now. I'm just, every color in here I'm in love with right now. I've been wearing a lot of teals and blues and greens, and I always just love a pop of like a purpley pink, something bright in there too. So this is Long Dog yarn, and I think this colorway is called Overboard. I'm not sure if I have the tag with it anymore, but it's just this really nice minty greeny blue, yeah, with like purples and also like dark teal and just fun speckles in it. Yeah, really beautiful. This teal here is leftovers from, I think, a Gauge Dye Works sweater skein. And then same thing, I just did this folded hem again. You can see I've been really liking that lately. I think the only thing I would change on this socks, if I could go back, is I would have done this plain knitting and not started the pattern until I got to this part. Not that that really matters, they still look great, but I think I would have liked the look of the plain knitting on the top, kind of to define this cuff a little bit more. But yeah, those are done too. So I have a good stash of new socks now. And then, so new projects, I just have one pair of socks. So I started these a couple nights ago when I finished those teal and mint socks that I just showed you. This is a Christmas colorway by Leo and Roxy Yarn Co. This was their like 2020 Christmas like mystery yarn thing that they were doing. So I got this, and I got 2 minis, like a bright pink and like a tealy blue. And so this is what I've been working on. I have the cuff done in the teal and then just a short leg, and now I did the Fish Lips Kiss heel in this bright pink, and we're going to do the toe in the pink as well. I actually ended up restarting these socks after I turned the heel and kind of looked at them, and I realized I didn't like them. I kind of hated how the yarn was pooling. It's not so bad now because I ended up ripping this back and starting over. I am pulling the yarn right now, like I have the yarn attached from the inside of the ball and the outside of the ball, and I'm knitting 3 rounds from the inside of the ball, 3 rounds from the outside of the ball, etc., etc., and just switching back and forth just to kind of break up that pooling a little bit, because it was really sitting just in one spot on the sock, and I prefer it when it kind of mixes around the whole thing, if that makes sense. So I'm just turning this inside out. You can see my carrying here. Block my face. And yeah, this works out pretty well if you are not liking the way your yarn is pooling, you know, at a specific gauge. If you don't want to change the gauge, you can always just either grab a second ball of yarn if you have a second ball, or if you have it wound up in a cake, I'll just knit from the inside and the outside of the same ball. Yeah, so I'm happy with how these are turning out. They're in like a Christmassy bag that I made a few years ago. Some yarn stuck to it. Just popping back on here quickly because I forgot to mention I do have the Etsy shop on sale for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. You should go check it out. You can find the link down below. And then I think the only other thing I have to show you is basically just a big pile of yarn. But there's a story behind this big pile of yarn. So this was a sweater. Something I've been doing lately is just going through, I have to do this every 6 months or so anyways, because we live in such a small house, but going through things and really prioritizing what we have and what we need and what we don't need. I think I was up to like over 15 hand knit sweaters or something like that. Actually, maybe that's where I'm at now. I had a lot of hand knit sweaters and I still do. So I have pulled about 3 or 4 and decided to get rid of some of them. I have 3 there to either sell or donate. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. But this was another sweater and I just decided that I wanted the yarn out of it. So it felt kind of crazy to undo it, but it was also going to be hard to probably sell it, you know, in the form that it was. So I just thought, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to rip it apart. And so that's what I ended up doing. This yarn is pretty valuable yarn. This is Brooklyn Tweed Shelter. It's beautiful yarn. It's just so gorgeous. I love this color so much. This is Noro, looks like Silk Garden. Yeah, there's Noro Carry On and Noro Silk Garden that I was thinking of. I'm pretty sure this is the Silk Garden. And it's just a beautiful striping colorway. And I'm just gonna probably get more enjoyment out of this yarn knitting it again. The sweater that I took this from, you can see it if you go back and look at like all my hand knit sweaters episode that I did a couple years ago. It was really lovely. It had this as like a garter yoke, and then this was the main color of the sweater. But I just wasn't wearing it anymore. I knit it in 2016, you know, that's 8 years ago. And yeah, it's time for something different. So it actually worked out really well. I have a Nitty Naughty, which is, I'll just go grab it for you. So this is a Nitty Naughty. I don't think it's Nitty, like K-N-I-T-T-Y. I think it's N-I-D-D-Y. But what this is, if you don't know, this is a way to make a skein of yarn. You can see you turn them so that the ends are perpendicular to each other, and then you can just wrap up and down and up and down, and this will create a skein of yarn for you. So I have this because I used to do a lot of spinning, still like to spin occasionally, and this is a nice way of being able to put your yarn up into a hank. I learned that last week, that the loaf of yarn that we were talking about was actually a traditional skein. And then what we buy, what we call skeins, this is a hank. So yeah, I just used my nitty knotty after pulling the yarn apart, pulling the sweater apart and undoing the yarn. I just rewrapped it on the nitty knotty and I made these skeins. And then I took the skeins and I washed them like I would wash hand spun yarn after spinning it. So this just took out all of the kinks in the yarn from being knit in place for so long, and now it's just fresh and ready to go. So I'm not sure actually what I'm going to do with this now. I had this whole thought that I could just make a sweater out of it, but actually I don't have quite enough for the sweater I had in mind because I used so much of this for the yoke, but I think that something will come up. So this is pretty much it for me this week. Pretty good, I think. This is the most productive I've been in quite a while, so it feels good. I'm really just enjoying it. My next big goal is to definitely get back to working on this sweater. I think that working on these small projects, getting that sense of satisfaction about finishing them and also clearing out some old sock whips really helped get me motivated. I currently have only 4 works in progress going, but one of them is just a pair of socks I'm considering pulling out. So that feels pretty good. I've got some space, some mental space, and some physical space that I've created in my craft room for some new projects and some new ideas. So yeah, let me know what you're working on down in the comments, and I hope that your crafting is just bringing you all sorts of joy and contentment, and we'll see you again in a few weeks. Take care.